All those who are unable to connect at the moment, I'll give the recording later on so that it will be easier for you to check. You can keep on commenting, you can keep on asking questions. I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So let's start. Yes. I'm trying to share my screen, which will be visible to you in a moment. Yes, it's there. It's there. Yeah. So phonetics and phonology. Let's have a quick difference between these two terms. As phonetics is a study of sounds. Phone means sound. Phonetics is a study of sounds, and phonology is a study of sound systems of a language. Now, what are the organs involved in the production of speech sounds? In the first place, we have the diaphragm just below the lungs. The air is pushed out from the diaphragm, goes through the lungs and through our windpipe. It reaches our voice box or the larynx out here, which is also known as the Adam's apple. There's a story like when Adam ate that apple and it got stuck here. So there's a kind of a projection out here, the Adam's apple or the voice box. Inside the voice box, there is a larynx, and there are the vocal cords inside the glottis, which is again inside the larynx. Now, due to the position of the vocal cords, we have got either voiceless or the voice sounds. The air then passes through the oral or the nasal cavities. When the air passes the oral cavity, like the tongue, the various parts of the tongue, the tip of the tongue, the blade of the tongue, or the back of the tongue, the velum or the soft palate, the hard palate, the teeth ridge or the alveolar, upper or the lower pair of teeth, the upper or lower lips, all these are involved. Now let's look at this picture. This is the inside of a mouth, and this is the nasal cavity. This is number one. Two, the upper lips and the lower lips. Then we've got the teeth out here, the upper pair of teeth and the lower pair of teeth. And just behind the teeth, there is the teeth ridge or the alveolar. And you see, this goes up. It's quite hard. This is known as the hard palate. And towards the end, this part is soft. Is known as the soft palate or the velum. Then there is the tongue, the tip of the tongue, the front of the tongue and the back of the tongue. This is the oral cavity. Then we have the pharynx out here, epiglottis, and this is the larynx, inside which there are the vocal cords. This is roughly. These are the few things which we should be able to know, so that we are able to identify, we are able to distinguish the sounds. Okay. Now then, let's talk of the airstream mechanism. The airstream mechanism can either be egressive, that means air is pushed out, or ingressive, meaning the air is taken in. When the air is pushed out of the lungs, is called egressive pulmonic. Egressive is pushed out. Egressive pulmonic. Very rarely, though, air is taken in, which is known as ingressive pulmonic. When the air is pushed out from into the glottis, we have the egressive glottic. Or when it's pushed in is ingressive glottic. When the back of the tongue is pressed against the velum or the soft palate, to push the air forward or draw it is known as ingressive or egressive velaric. Then we have the consonant sounds and the vowel sounds. The consonant sounds are those during the production of these sounds there's an audible friction. There is either a narrowing or what is known as the stricture of close approximation, or there's a total closure either in the oral or in the nasal cavity. So there are 24 consonant sounds in English, or let's say in the received pronunciation, RP. Received pronunciation is standard British English. So we've got 24 consonant sounds. Say we've got 26 letters of the alphabet, and we have already have 24 consonant sounds. And the vowel sounds. Vowel sounds are those during the production of which there is no audible friction. There is no audible friction. There is no narrowing, no stricture of close approximation, and there is no closure either in the oral or the nasal cavity. There are 20 vowel sounds in the received pronunciation, out of which 12 are monophthongs or pure vowels, and 8 are diphthongs or vowel glides. Now, why are we again talking of vowels and consonants separately? We have already talked of consonants and vowels in our primary school or in the secondary schools at best. Now we are again talking of vowels and consonants. So here what we are trying to do is we are trying to talk of the sounds. So a single letter can give rise to a number of sounds, or a single sound can be represented by again a number of letters. Now see, again there is a problem. Let me start telling you a story. A person went to Australia, and when he met the first person in Australia, the person asked him, "Have you come to die?" He said, "Why should I come to die? I've come to Australia to visit Australia. We'll travel to different places. We'll see a lot of places. So have you come to die?" So what he wanted to say was, "Have you come today?" So that is how it's pronounced in Australia. There's another case where a group of people went to Australia, and the travel agent asked him, "How many miles?" He said, "How do I know how many miles? Is you who are supposed to tell me how many miles from Adelaide to Melbourne and Victoria and whatever." He said, "How many miles and how many females? So how many males and how many females? How many men and how many women are there?" Now, let's look at a case from London. In London, if you hear the word bison, and if you're thinking of the animal, and if you ask where's a bison or what's a bison, he said a bison is a place where you wash your face in. So it's a basin, B-A-S-I-N, bison is a place where you wash your face in, F-A-C-E, face, instead of face, normally what we pronounce, face in. So that's a typical Cockney English. A person who is not that formally educated, he would speak this kind of a dialect. There is one more story about an American and a British. A British was making fun at the American pronunciations. So he asked the American, why do Americans pronounce schedule as schedule? The American was a witty man. He said, possibly because we never went to school. What he was trying to say was, you are the one who are creating all the problems. One place, when you write SCHOOL, school, you say school. And another place, when you write SCHEDULE, you pronounce schedule. So if that is school, that should be schedule or schedule. So you are the one who is making mistakes. Similarly, another story of George Bernard Shaw. He was a very witty person, we know. So he was asked once to spell fish. So what he spelled was GHOTI. Someone said, it's goatee. I asked you to spell fish. You have to spell fish. He said, no. See, GH in the word rough, ROUGH, how do you pronounce it? It's fa. Women, WOMEN, women. That O is pronounced I. And TI in nation, NATIO in nation, TI is pronounced sh. So GH is fa, O is I, and TI is sh. So GH or TI should be pronounced as fish. He was very critical of the English spelling. So these are the problems we face in real life. An Indian went to England and the receptionist asked, sir, may I help you, sir? He said, I want tobacco. And she was confused. She said, yes, can I help you, please? I want tobacco. Much later, the receptionist could understand that what he wanted was tobacco. So you need tobacco. So we pronounce things in one kind of way. And when we try to communicate with a person whose mother tongue is English, he may not be able to understand. Or the way they pronounce, we may not be able to understand. Because we go by the spelling. So spelling is a very poor guide to pronunciation in case of English. So there's a huge problem for us. Suppose we take the word TORTOISE. We would pronounce it as tortoise. But a person whose mother tongue is English would pronounce it as tortoise. Tortoise and tortoise are two different things almost. So that's why we need to concentrate on the sounds. We need to have some symbols which would be useful for us. Okay, then we have, let's come back to phonetics once again, with the voiced and the voiceless sounds. Voiced sounds are those during the production of which the vocal cords are held loosely together. And when the air passes through the glottis, there's a vibration in the vocal cords. It sounds like b, d, g, j, v, the, z, zh, m, n, ng, r, y, w. These are all voice sounds in RP. During the production of the voiceless sounds, the vocal cords are held apart, and when the air passes through the glottis, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. So sounds like p, t, k, ch, f, th, th, sh, and h are voiceless sounds in RP. All vowels, nasals, and approximants are voice sounds in RP. Now let's look at this picture. This is inside the glottis. Now these are the vocal cords. So there is a gap here. So when the air passes through this glottis, we get voiceless sounds. In this case, you see, here the vocal cords are held loosely together, and this gap is very narrow for the air to pass. So when the air passes, there's a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. So we have got voiced sounds. Then let's look at the phonemes and the allophones. What's a phoneme? A phoneme is a minimum distinctive unit of a sound. It cannot be divided further. An allophone is a variation of the phoneme according to its environment and use. And hence, if someone was to pronounce the word pin as pin instead of pin, the word tin instead of tin, the word king instead of king, there will be no change in meaning. If the phoneme is changed, the word itself will be different, and there will be a change in meaning. In case of the change in allophone, there will be no change in meaning. The words will remain the same. In RP, p, b, t, d, k, g, ch, j, f, v, th, v, s, z, sh, j, h, m, n, ng, r, y, and w are separate phonemes. In RP, for example, p and p are allophones of the same phoneme. But say in case of Bangla, these two are different, or in Hindi as for that matter, these two are different phonemes, as interchanging these two sounds will arrive at two different words. Similarly, ta and ta, ka and ka are allophonic variations of each other in RP, but may not be in other languages. Now, let's talk of the aspirated and the unaspirated phonemes. When any phoneme is articulated with an extra puff of air, it's known to be aspirated. In RP, the phonemes p, t, and k are aspirated. When they occur in the initial position of a stressed syllable, example, p, t, and k, as in the words p is pin, t in case of tin, k in case of king. Now, before we really come to the consonant sounds, let's look at the manner of articulation. In case of plosives, what happens is the air is built up inside the mouth. There's a total oral and nasal closure, and the air is released suddenly through the oral or the nasal cavity. In this case, actually, it's the oral cavity. Nasals are treated slightly differently again. So, initially, the air is built up inside the mouth. There's a total closure, and then there's a sudden release. So, sounds like p, b, t, d, k, and g. Let's look at the fricatives first before coming to the affricates. In case of fricative sounds, there is a close approximation in the oral cavity, or there is a narrowing in the oral cavity. The nasal cavity is closed. The air is released with a lot of friction. So it sounds like fa, va, sa, the, sa, z, sh, j, ha. The affricates, why I choose to bring the affricates later is, affricate is something between the plosives and the fricatives. In case of the affricate sounds, there's also a closure as in the case of plosives, a closure in the oral cavity, but the release of air through the oral cavity is not sudden, it's slow. Friction is also not as prominent as the fricative sounds, ch, j, etc. in case of RP. Next we have got the nasals. In case of nasals, the oral cavity is closed and the air is released through the nasal cavity. In the production of nasals in RP, these are almost like plosives. The only difference is that the plosives are articulated through the oral cavity, where the nasal cavity is closed. And the nasals are articulated through the nasal cavity, where the oral cavity is closed. So the nasals in RP are m, n, and ng. All the nasals in RP are voiced. Then we have the approximants. Approximants are those, if you think of the word approximate, is not exact. It's not really like the other sounds we've been talking of. It's almost like touch and go with the r, w, y. So they hardly touch the other the active articulator hardly touches the passive articulator, and it released. So we get sounds like r, y, and w. And then we have the laterals. In case of laterals, where the tongue is held laterally and the air is passed by the side of the tongue, we get lateral sounds like l in this case. Now let's look at the places of articulation. In case of the place of articulation, we have first the bilabials. Now the bilabials, when two lips come in contact to produce a sound, it is known as a bilabial sounds. Bi means two, labial of the lips. Bilabial. So we have got sounds like p, b, and w. Then we have the labiodental sounds. When the upper teeth touch the lower lip, we get a labiodental sound. Sounds like f, b, the upper teeth and the lower lip, f, b. Then we have the dentals. When the position of the tongue is in between the two pairs of teeth, we get the dental sounds in RP. Th, the, th, the. Alveolar. When the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge, we get the alveolar sounds in RP. T, d, s, z, n, r, l. Then we have the post-alveolar sounds. When the tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar or the teeth ridge, we get post-alveolar sounds in RP. For example, ch, j, sh, and j. Next we have the palatal sounds. The front of the tongue is the active articulator and the hard palate is the passive articulator. Example, y, the initial sound in the words like yes, Europe, university, etc. Then we have the velars. When the back of the tongue comes close to the velum or the soft palate, we get velar sounds in RP like k, g, ng, and w. Then the glottal. The glottal sounds are produced at the glottis, and the two vocal cords are the articulators. H is the words in a word like hotel or hat, etc. Now, there will be always a question before we come to the consonant chart. Let's just talk of this. Now, we may be asked to give the three-term label of the consonant sounds. Now, in order to determine the three-term label of the phoneme, we have to describe in the following manner. First, we have to state what is the state of the glottis, what is the condition of the glottis, whether the sound is voiced or the voiceless, whether the vocal cords are closed, where there is a vibration in the cords, that means it's voiced, or the vocal cords are wide apart, where there is no vibration in the vocal cords, that is the voiceless sound. Next, we have to state what's the place of articulation, where the sound is produced, which part of the mouth touches which part and the sound is produced. And then we have to state the manner of articulation. That's how the sound is produced. We had only talked of the different manners of articulation earlier. We have also talked of different places of articulation earlier. Now, let us look at the consonant chart in RP. RP, let's repeat, is received pronunciation. Please check the spelling, because some of us make a mistake in this spelling. It's pronunciation. Pronounce is the verb, and pronunciation, there is no O inside. Pronunciation, N-U-N. See, on the top we have the place of articulation. All these are places of articulation. Bilabial, the labiodental, the dental, the alveolar, the postalveolar, the palatal, the velar, and the glottal. Then we have the manner of articulation. The plosives or the stops, with the affricates, with the fricatives, with the nasals, the approximants, we have the laterals. And here we have the state of the glottis, whether it's voiceless or voiced, whether the vocal cords were close together or the vocal cords are wide apart. If the vocal cords are close together, there's hardly any vibration in the vocal cords, we get the voiceless sounds. If the vocal cords are close together and there's a lot of vibration there, so we have the voice sounds. The one thing we have to be very careful now, that when we are using these letters here, these are actually not letters, these are symbols. These are symbols. We have to write it exactly in this manner. We cannot make any mistake. We cannot slant them. We cannot make any decoration. We cannot change it in any other way. This is the only way we have to write it. Or else the meaning might be different. Once it is outside this chart, we have to write it within slant lines. There should be two slant lines on both sides to represent that it's a symbol and it is not a letter of the alphabet. Now, first we have pa. Pa. See, what I am doing is, it might sound little like Hindi. What I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to reduce the vowel sound as much as possible. So we cannot utter a consonant sound without a bit of vowel sound. So, but the vowel sound here is not important for me. For me, what is important is the consonant sound. So I'm trying to reduce the vowel sound as much as possible. So, pa. See, pa, where have we kept it? We have put it beneath this voiceless. This is VL. VL is voiceless and VD is voiced. So we have put it just beneath this voiceless state of the glottis. It was voiceless. So in the first place, when we have to write the three-term label, we have to say that the p is a voiceless sound. Next we see the place of articulation is the bilabial. Place of articulation is bilabial. That means the two lips came in contact, and when they released, the sound was produced. And next thing we have to describe is it's a plosive sound. Plosive, say, it's similar to the word explosive. So a kind of an explosion takes place. So air is built up inside the mouth. There's a total closure of the lips, and there's a sudden release. Pa. So the three-term label will be pa is a voiceless, bilabial, plosive. Then we have b. It's a voiced sound because the vocal cords come in contact with each other, come very close to each other. They're loosely held together, and when the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration, and we have got a voiced sound. It is also a bilabial sound because the lips come in contact with each other, and it is also a plosive sound. So the three-term label of b is a voiced, bilabial, plosive. Voiced, bilabial, plosive. So plosive again because air is built up inside the mouth. There's a total closure and there's a sudden release. Pa and b. Now let's do an experiment to find out whether we are very sure of the difference between these two sounds. Now let's take our hand, the palm, let's put the palm on our ears and utter these two sounds, pa and b, pa and b. So when you utter these two sounds, when you utter pa and when you again utter b, so in case of b, you'll feel that there's a lot of vibration occurring. In case of pa, that vibration isn't there. When you put your maybe your hand on your head like this, the palm on your head, and you utter these two sounds, pa and b. See, in b, you'll find there's a lot of vibration. Or if you put these two fingers loosely below the Adam's apple, below the larynx here, and if you utter this sounds pa and b, so in case of b, again you will find there's a lot of vibration. So that is how you can find out for yourself whether a sound is voiced or it's voiceless. So it's a pa or a b. Then we have got this alveolar sounds. The tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge. A small portion after the teeth is the alveolar. There's small. If you try with your tongue, you'll be able to see. If you press the tongue upwards slowly, it's a small portion is there, just at the root of the teeth, which is known as the ridge or the alveolar. So when the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar, we've got this sound t. It's a voiceless sound. We've already described what's a voiceless sound, where the vocal cords are held separately, and when the air passes through, there is hardly any vibration. It is the second criteria is the place of articulation. First criteria was the state of the glottis, is voiceless. Second criteria is the place of articulation is the alveolar. And then next is the plosives. It's the plosive. So ta is a voiceless, alveolar, plosive. This is the three-term label. When we were asked to, will be asked to describe these this consonant sound. We may be asked to give the three-term label of the sound. So we'll say it's a voiceless alveolar plosive. Then see we have got one more sound, D. D is a voiced sound because the vocal cords are held loosely together, and when the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration. So it's the first criteria is that state of the glottis is voiced. Then it is alveolar because the tip of the tongue touches the teeth ridge or the alveolar. And the third criteria is it's a plosive. So in case of D is a voiceless alveolar plosive. Now the next plosive sound is K. So it's something like this small K. K is voiceless. The vocal cords are held apart from each other, wide apart, and the air passes through. There's a lot of, when the air passes, there is no vibration. It's a velar sound because the back of the tongue touches the velum or the soft palate. This is the second criteria for us, the place of articulation. And the third criteria is the state of the manner of articulation. So it is also a plosive. Now let's look at the next sound out here is G. Please look at this very carefully. Somehow in our learning material, there's a typological error. A different symbol is given. Please try and use this symbol as far as possible. P, B, T, D, K were not very difficult. This is slightly different, almost like a handwritten G. This is how normally we write when we write it in our hands, with our hands. So this is a voiced sound. Why? Because the vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration. So the state of the glottis is it's voiced. The place of articulation, it is velar. It's velar because the back of the tongue comes in contact with the soft palate. So we have the velar sound. And the third criteria is the manner of articulation. It is plosive. So we've got 6 plosive sounds in the RP. And what is RP? It's a received pronunciation. So we've got P, we've got B, we've got T, we've got D, we've got K, and we've got G. 2 bilabial plosives, 2 alveolar plosives, and 2 velar plosives. In each case, there is one voiceless and one voiced. Then we have the affricates. Excuse me. In case of the affricates, we have got this chart. And look how it is written. It's like a small t and a long s. In mathematics, is a sign for summation. In calculus, long s. So these two combined, this is one symbol. These are not 2 symbols. This is one symbol. Ch. Ch is a voiceless sound. Ch is a voiceless sound because for the same old reason that the vocal cords are held apart from each other and the air passes through. There is a wide gap and the air passes through. There is no vibration. So we get a voiceless sound. It's a post-alveolar. Post-alveolar, meaning it's from the back of the alveolar. If the alveolar itself is very small area, So from the back of the alveolar, this sound is produced. When the tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar, we get the post-alveolar sound. So the state of the glottis is voiceless. The place of articulation is post-alveolar, and the manner of articulation is an affricate. What was an affricate? Affricate was there is a total closure, but there is a slow release, but there is some amount of friction involved. Ch, ch is not as harsh as a plosive. Ch. And then we have seen another sound, j. So this looks like a D, and this looks like a capital Z almost. So this is again one symbol. These are not two symbols. One symbol, j. The jaw, the state of the glottis is voiced. Because of the same reason, the path is narrow for the air to flow when it flows through the glottis. The vocal cords are held loosely together. Air passes through with a lot of vibration, causing a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. And the place of articulation is post-alveolar. Post-alveolar, and the state manner of articulation is affricates. So we've got two affricates. See, these two symbols will be difficult to remember. This is very important to know. See, the plosives will not be difficult for you. But these two symbols, for an Indian, it will not be difficult to pronounce it, may utter these sounds, but it may be difficult for you to remember the symbols. So please be very careful. Please write it in this manner only. Now, then we have the fricatives. There are no fricatives in our Indian languages. Fricatives. Fricatives are there. What are the fricatives? We said earlier, a fricative, there's a stricture of close approximation. There is a narrowing between the active articulator and the passive articulator. There is a narrowing. In the plosive, what happened was there was a closure. In case of fricative, there is no closure. There is a narrowing. And the air passes through that gap, that narrow path, causing a lot of friction. Fricative. There is a similarity with the sound friction. So let's be very clear, the air passes through with a lot of friction. There is no narrowing, there is no stoppage. So this will continue. You can, if you take a piece of paper in front of you, take a piece of paper in front of you, and if you continue with the sounds, this sound will keep on flowing. The first fricative is f. Now, problem with our North Indian languages here will be we've got a h coming from both the lips, or we at times try to say f, give a narrow gap. It's neither that. It's the upper lip, upper teeth, and the lower lip. F. It's not for. It's not for. It's f. So it may be difficult to produce this sound, but it will not be difficult to remember the symbol. The symbol is not difficult. F is a voiceless sound. What's the reason? It being voiceless. Then the vocal cords are held apart and the air passes through. There's a lot of free passage and the vocal cords do not vibrate. So the first criteria in the three-term label is the state of grace is a voiceless sound. It is labiodental. Labio is of the lips. Dental is the teeth. So upper teeth and the lower lip. F, f, see, f, f, f. Lower lip and the upper teeth. That's a place of articulation. And the third criteria is it's a fricative. What did we say about fricative? Fricatives are where there is a stricture of close approximation. There is a narrowing. When the air passes through, there is a lot of friction. So, fa is a voiceless labiodental fricative. Similarly, we have got this va. Va is a voiced sound. When the air passes through the vocal cords to the glottis, the vocal cords are held loosely together and the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration. So it makes it a voiced sound. That is the first criteria, the state of the glottis is voiced. Second criteria, the place of articulation, it's labiodental. Labio of the lips, dental of the teeth. So this is the lower lip and the upper teeth. V, 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 v. Even this sound is not present in our North Indian languages. V, f, and v. The manner of articulation is it's a fricative. And what would you say about the fricatives? There is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing where the air passes through. There is a lot of friction. So, va is a voiced labiodental fricative. Now, then let's shift. This, see, fa and va, symbol wise, you may be able to remember. But the sound wise, the production of the sound may be a little difficult. Now this sound, tha, tha, tha. Tha, say, the tongue comes out a little badly. Tha, tha, tha. This symbol, theta, the Greek symbol theta, you can make it round and you can, cut the middle. So it's theta. Tha is a voiceless sound. We have talked of voiceless and voice sounds a number of times. Still, I'm going to repeat. Then the vocal cords are held apart from each other, and when the air passes through, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. We get a voiceless sound. There's a first case is a state of the glottis is voiceless. Then it's a dental sound. It's coming from the teeth. There's a place of articulation, and the manner is the fricatives. So there is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing. When the air passes through, there is a lot of vibration. So it may be difficult for us to remember the symbol as well as produce the sound correctly. Tha, tha, tha. As the sim. Then we have the sound the. There is sound the. The is a voiced sound because the vocal cords are held close together, and when the air passes through, there is a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. So the first criteria is state of the glottis, so it is voiced. Second criteria was the place of articulation is gentle. The, the almost comes from inside, within both the teeth, both the pairs of teeth. The, just like the, as in the word then, there, this, and the manner of articulation is fricative. Same, there is a stricture of close approximation. When the air passes through, there is a lot of friction. So these two symbols may be difficult for us to remember. It may be difficult for us to produce the sounds also. Please check these two sounds. It's very important so that we don't make it, because we don't need to produce it for exam purposes. So at least, sorry, at least if you are able to recognize these two symbols, we will be happy and describe them. Then we have got the sound S. S. It should not be difficult for most people, but there are cases in certain places in the eastern region, in suppose in Bengal, S is very difficult in most of the places. S. S is a voiceless sound. By now, I think you are clear what's a voiceless and a voice sound. Voiceless, where the vocal cords are held apart from each other, the air passes through, there is no vibration, so that is a voiceless sound. So that is the state of the glottis, is voiceless. Place of articulation is alveolar. We have discussed earlier was an alveolar sound, where in case of t and d, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge, and we have got this sound, and the manner of articulation is fricative. There is a stricture of close approximation, and there is a narrowing, and there is a lot of friction involved. So production wise, for most people this may not be difficult. Neither the symbol. The next one, Z. Next is Z. Z. Now this is not there in Indian languages. But in Hindi, these days you find beneath the word letter J, they put a small dot so that they can represent this sound Z. So it can represent this sound Z. So Z for Indian languages is very difficult. For Indian speakers, it's very difficult. Z. Like buzz, buzz, Z, Z. So Z is a voiced sound. The vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration. So we get a Z sound. So the state of the glottis is voiced. It is also alveolar. We've discussed this earlier a number of times, that the tip of the tongue touches the teeth ridge or the alveolar, and it is a fricative. Meaning again, there is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing, and when the air passes through that stricture of close approximation, through that space, the small space, there is a lot of friction. So Z. So Z may be difficult for us to produce this sound, but symbol wise it will not be very difficult. Sure. See, we have seen it earlier. Is a symbol for those people, those students of mathematics. They will easily realize a symbol for summation. It's a long S almost. This mid part is straightened, flattened a bit. It made it elongated. The sh. So this may be difficult to remember the symbol, but production will not be difficult for Indian speakers normally. So sh is a voiceless sound. The vocal cords are held apart from each other, and hence the state of the glottis, the first criteria is voiceless. The place of articulation is post-alveolar. What did we say about this post-alveolar business? Post means backside, so back of the alveolar, and then it is a fricative, meaning there is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing, and when the air passes through that narrow space, we get a lot of friction. Sure. Now, this sound, j, is a difficult sound for us. We don't get it in Indian languages. Even in English, there are only a few words only where we get to this sound. Sounds like the words like measure, words like pleasure, treasure, garage, even at times espionage. So all this came from French. Je. Take the tongue backside, the post-alveolar, almost near the hard palate. You can produce this sound. So if this may be difficult for us to produce, this may also may be difficult for us to recognize the symbol. It's a voice sound, meaning the vocal cords are held loosely together, and there is a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. So that is the first criteria, the state of the glottis. Then the manner of articulation, the place of articulation is post-alveolar. So the tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar, almost near the hard palate region. We get this sound j, and it is also a fricative, meaning there is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing, and when air passes through that gap, there is a lot of friction. J. Then we got one more fricative, ha. Ha is a voiceless sound because the vocal cords are held apart from each other. When the air passes through, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. The place of articulation is glottal. It's produced from the glottis, from inside the voice box, and it is a fricative. That means there is a narrowing, or there is a stricture of close approximation, and when the air passes through this narrow gap, we get a lot of friction. As the word hotel, hat, hut. So say we have got 9 fricatives out here. Fa, va, sa, za, sa, za, sha, ja, ha. We had 6 plosives, pa, ba, ta, ta, ka, and ga. And we had 2 affricates, cha and ja. Now we have got 9 fricatives. Now let's look at the nasal sounds. Now, in case of nasals, what happens is the oral cavity is closed and the nasal cavity is open. So far, what was happening was the nasal cavity was closed and the oral cavity was open. The mouth cavity was open and the space through the nose was closed. Now, the space through the mouth will be closed and the cavity, the gap through the nose will be open. In some cases, there are nasalized sounds in some languages. In French or even some Indian languages, there are nasalized sounds which are not there in RP. That means both the oral cavity and the nasal cavity are open. In English, that's not the case. Now we've got the first nasal here is a M. First nasal is a M. M is a voiced bilabial nasal. M. See, these nasals and plosives are very similar. The plosives are oral and nasals are not oral. Oral cavity is closed here. So it's voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there is a lot of vibration. So that's the first criteria of three-term label. State of the glottis is voiced, is bilabial, is coming from both the lips. There's the place of articulation, and the manner of articulation is nasal. When the air passes through the nasal cavity, and the oral cavity is closed. Next nasal is N. N is also voiced. Because the vocal cords in the glottis are held together, closely together. When the air passes through, there is a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. The second criteria for us, the place of articulation, is an alveolar sound. That is, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar. We have seen in case of ta, da, sa, za, etc. earlier. And it is also a nasal sound, because the oral cavity is closed and the nasal cavity is open. And the last one here in nasals is Ng. Ng is a voiced velar. Voiced because in the same case, similar case earlier what we have seen, the vocal cords are held loosely together and the air passes through. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of vibration in the vocal cords, in the glottis. This was the state of the glottis. It's a velar sound. We've seen another velar earlier, G. The back of the tongue touches the velum. That is the place of articulation, and it's a nasal because the oral cavity is closed and the mouth cavity is open. The oral cavity is closed and the nasal cavity is open. So now see, there's one more thing. This M is a bilabial, B is a bilabial, this N is bilabial, this D is bilabial, N is bilabial, G is bilabial. Now, suppose if you were to wish me good morning, you meet me in the morning and you want to wish me good morning. And suppose you've got a nose blockage. Suppose there's a lot of cough, you are suffering from cold, there's nose blockage, and you were to wish me good morning. So it will sound like this: good morning, good morning, good morning. Because the nasal cavity is closed, you are unable to produce. These nasal sounds. This M replaced by B, this N replaced by D, and N replaced by G. So instead of saying good morning, you say good morning. Good morning. So these two are very close. These plosives and nasals are very close otherwise. For one case, the plosives, the oral cavity is open, nasal cavity is closed. Just the reverse is in case of nasals. The nasal cavity is open and the oral cavity is closed. Now, let's look at the approximants. As soon as you hear the word approximate, it means approximate, which is very close, which is not exactly what it is. So we've got the first sound, suppose W. W. See, let's just see. B, B, lips touch very closely. M, M, lips touch very, very closely. They come in contact. W, just touches and goes. The lip come very close to the kissing position, and it is released. Wo. Wo. Now this wo is in Hindi we've got a wo, but again, if you come towards the east, in Bengali it is not there. Assamese it's there. The most North Indian languages in Sanskrit, you'll find this sound. Wo. Wo, ra, la. Then ra. Ra is a voice sound. Oh, I'm sorry, we have not finished this. Wo is a voice sound because the vocal cords are held loosely together, and the state of the glottis is voiced because there is a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. It's bilabial because it comes from both the lips, so that's the place of articulation, and is an approximant. It's not. It is not exactly as close as a b or ma. It's slightly different from b. Is an oral sound. It's not a nasal sound, so it is a similarity with the b, but is an approximant. Is not exactly b. It's slightly lighter than this. Then we get a r. The tip of the tongue hardly touches the alveolar. It's also a voice sound because the vocal cords are held closely together, and we have got this voice sound. We have got this voice sound. Ra. That is the state of the glottis. It is the place of articulation is ra. So the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge, and it is an approximant because it doesn't stay put there. It just touches and releases this. Then we have this ya. Again, this is not there in some North Indian languages like Bengali. It's very much there in Hindi or Sanskrit. Ya is a voice sound. It's the vocal cords are held loosely together, and the air passes through. There's a lot of friction. It's a palatal sound. See, for the first time, the blade of the tongue touches the hard palate. Now, which is the hard palate? If you try and feel with your tongue inside the mouth, first you'll find the teeth, the upper pair of teeth. You just slide upwards. You get the teeth ridge, the small portion. You slide it up aside. It's a hard palate. This portion is hard. It's called the hard palate. So it's a palatal sound. So because the sound takes place at the palate, at the hard palate, and it is also an approximate because it just touches on the ear here, as the word university, yes, Europe, European. Now see, you see something out here within brackets, within these round brackets, within parentheses, wo. So here we got the wo, here also we got another wo, but this is the same thing. These are not two different sounds. This is one sound, just one sound. Only thing, apart from being voiced bilabial approximant, it also has a quality of velar. That means the back of the tongue touches the soft palate or the velar. So while producing this sound, this also comes in. So this is not a separate sound. So there are three approximants: wo, ra, ya. Now we have got a lateral sound. Lateral sound, la. La is also a voiced sound. The state of the glottis is voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together and the air passes through. There's a lot of friction, a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. The place of articulation is is alveolar. That is, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge, and the manner of articulation is lateral. The tongue is laterally placed and the air passes through from both the sides. L. See, we've got now one lateral. So let's just check. We've got three plosives, 6 plosives, 2 bilabials, 2 alveolars, 2 velars. So there should not be any problem with these 6: p, b, t, d, k, and g. If we're a little careful about g, affricates there are 2. There may be slight problem in recognizing the symbols or writing them. Fricatives, there are 9. Fa and ba may be difficult to produce for some, but it may not be difficult to recognize the symbols. Sa and the are both difficult to recognize the symbols and produce them. Sa, the, both these 2 dental sounds. Sa is not difficult for most of us. For some, there may be a difficulty. Z is a problematic sound for most of us, but no problem in recognizing these 2 symbols. Sh, the symbol may be a little difficult, but sound will not be difficult. J is a difficulty for most of us, most Indian speakers. Ha, there's absolutely no problem. There's no problem with ma or na, but there will be a problem with recognizing the symbol ma and producing it separately. If you produce it in a word, there will not be difficulty for North Indian speakers. But for speakers of Tibeto-Burman group of languages in the Northeast, this is not a problem at all for either uttering this, producing this sound, but there will be, of course, a problem in recognizing the symbol. Approximants, for some, wa is little difficult, but most cases there is no problem for us either to recognize this symbol or to produce this. Ra, there is no problem with most of us. Ya may be problematic for some, both recognizing the symbol and producing it. And la, see, la is just a straight line, is not a capital L like this one. There is a problem in our learning material, I think. This is just typological error, I understand. This law is printed in some places, but this L should not be there. This small L is there to produce law. So there are 24 symbols in the consonant sounds. Let's repeat. What are they? Pa, ba, ta, da, ka, ga, 6 plosives. Cha, ja, 2 affricates. Pa, ba, tha, da, sa, za, sha, ja, ha. 9 fricatives. Nasals, ma, na, nga. 3 nasals. Wa, ra, ya. 3 approximants. La is also another approximant, is a lateral approximant, is 1. So there are 24 of them. Now in these 4 cases, mainly the fricatives, if you find there is a slight change, in some cases you might find cha, ja, sha, ja, they might appear in the palato-alveolar section. In some books you might find this is in the palato-alveolar section. The gap is so small, it's very difficult to identify at times. whether it's the back of the alveolar or it's between the hard palate and the alveolar. And there are changes, so some books may have recorded things slightly differently, but this is done according to our learning material, so that should not be a problem. Now, let us do some repetition. It will be easier now for us. First we have got serial number, the symbol, the three-term label, and the words. First we have got this. See, when I told you earlier, when we write these letters outside that chart, if you write it without the slant lines, this will be taken as the letter of the alphabet. If it is within the slant lines, then only we know that this is a symbol. Or is between the slant lines. Three-term label, what we had seen earlier, is a voiceless bilabial plosive. The state of the glottis, voiceless. The place of articulation, bilabial, and the manner of articulation is plosive. This is pa. So you find in the word tip, this P in tip, this P in chip, and P in hip. Tip, chip, hip. This is not at all a problem for us. B. See again, see this is written within slant lines. So this is a symbol. Is a voiced bilabial plosive. The state of the glottis is voiced. The place of articulation is bilabial, and the manner of articulation is plosive. So this is found in the words like backed, this T in the word backed, T in the word hat, and T in the word cat. No problem with this either. Duh. I can recognize this to be a symbol because this is within the slant lines. Duh. Voiced alveolar plosive. The voiced, the first criteria was the state of the glottis. Second criteria was the place of articulation, the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar, and the manner of articulation was plosive. So we get this in the word had, D in the word had, D in the word dad, D in the word mad. There's no problem in this case either. Then we have got K. See, this looks like a small K. This again within the slant line, so it is not a K, it's a K. It's a voiceless, velar, plosive. The first criteria, state of the glottis is voiceless. Second criteria, the place of articulation is velar, and the manner of articulation is plosive. Velar because the back of the tongue touches the soft palate or the velum. Plosive because there is a closure, there is a total closure, air is built up inside the mouth, and there is a sudden release. Pick, CK in pick, CK again in tick, CK again in lick. Next, G. See, this is slightly different, like something like a handwritten G within these slant lines. So I know it's a G. G is a voiced, velar, plosive. Voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together when the air passes through. There's a lot of vibration in the vocal cords, and it's a plosive. It's a plosive because the air is built up inside the mouth. There's a total closure, and there's a sudden release. So this G in the word bag or the gag or tag. See, this is a symbol which is used in our learning material at places. You have to be careful about this. This is actually this one. No harm if you use this, but it's actually this. If you really want to go ahead with this study of this. Then we have got this ch. See, it looks like two different symbols, the T and this long S, but it's a one symbol, and because it is within this nasalized, I can recognize that it's the sound ch. Ch is a voiceless, alveolar affricate. Voiceless because the vocal cords are held apart from each other, and when the air passes through, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. It's post alveolar. The tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar. There is a place of articulation, and the manner of articulation is affricate. Affricate meaning there is a total closure like the plosives, but there is a slow release and there is some friction. Chair, as in the word ch, as in the word chair, ch in the word chair, chain, ch in the word chain, batch, tch in the word batch. Then there is a j, of course. Then there is a j, which is a voiced post-alveolar fricative. Voiced, as we have earlier said, because the vocal cords are held loosely together and there is a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. Post-alveolar is from the back of the alveolar and is an affricate. So there is a total closure, but there is sudden release. There is no sudden release. There is slow release, and there is some amount of friction. J, as in the word judge, jewel, badge. You get these words. Then we have fa. Fa is a voiceless labiodental fricative. See, this is exactly how you have to write. It's exactly when you are asked to write the three term labels, you have to write this way. Is the voiceless labiodental fricative. Voiceless because the vocal cords are held loosely apart, and when the air passes through, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. That's the state of the glottis. The place of articulation is labiodental, and the manner of articulation is it's fricative. Now, fricative because there's a stricture of close approximation. When the air passes through, there's a lot of friction. So that is the manner of articulation. So we get this fa in fan, fa in fig, and fa in fine. So these F's in these three letters are represented by this symbol fa. Then we have this v, the voiced labiodental fricative. Voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration involved. It's labiodental because the lower lip and the upper teeth are involved in these two cases. We've got v and f, and it's a fricative because there's a stricture of close approximation. There is a narrowing. When the air passes through, there is a lot of vibration, lot of friction. So this V in the word van, V in the word veil, and V in the word have. Then we have this problematic th, th, th. See how the tongue comes out? It comes out a little more actually. Th, th. It's difficult to recognize this symbol and produce the sound. For us, producing the sound is not that a problem at the moment because we don't need to produce it for our exam purposes here. So we have to recognize this symbol, or we have to write it maybe. It's a voiceless dental fricative. The vocal cords are held apart, wide apart. The air passes through. There's a lot of friction. The dental, the teeth comes in between the teeth, upper teeth and lower teeth. The tongue comes in between the upper teeth and lower teeth. Huh, huh. And it's a fricative because there's a stricture of close approximation. There is a narrowing, and when the air passes through, there's a lot of friction. Say the th in the word think, th in the word bath, th in the word tooth, th in the word think, bath, tooth. Then we have got this the is a voiced dental fricative. Voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together, and when the air passes through, there's a lot of friction. It is dental because the tongue comes in between the two pairs of teeth, upper pair and the lower pair, and it's fricative because there's stricture of close approximation, or there's a narrowing, and there's a lot of friction. The. If you put your hand in front, you'll see the air is still passing, it's continuing. So, th in the word then, th in the word this, th in the word bathe. See, this is a bath here, b-a-th bath, and b-a-th bathe, the bathe. So these two symbols we have to look for. These are little problematic maybe. Then we have this sa. See, if we just go back to the, see how it is written. This is an inverted E almost, an inverted E, and it is cut by another line on the top. The sa is a voiceless alveolar fricative. Voiceless because the vocal cords are held apart from each other. When the air passes through, there is no vibration in the vocal cords. It's alveolar because the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar or the teeth ridge. And it's fricative because there's a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing, and when the air passes through, there is a lot of friction. So the word sin, S in the word sin, S in the word bus, S in the word same are represented by the symbol sa. Then we have this z. Z is a voiced alveolar fricative. It's voiced because the vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration in the vocal cords. It's alveolar because the tip of the tongue touches the alveolar, the teeth ridge, and it's fricative. Once again, for the same reason, there is a stricture of close approximation, or there is a narrowing, and when the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration involved. So in the word Z, in the word buzz, two Z's are there. Zoom, Z in the word zoom, Z in the word haze. So this is little difficult to produce, but not so difficult to remember this, recognize this sound. Then we have this sh. Sh is a voiceless post-alveolar fricative. It's voiceless because vocal cords are held apart from each other when the air passes through. There is no vibration in the vocal cords. Post-alveolar, the tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar, and it's a fricative because there is a stricture of close approximation or there is a narrowing, and when the air passes through, there is a lot of friction. So sh in the word bush, or in the word share, or in the word shoe, we've got these sounds. This sound. J is voice sound. Is difficult for us, but we have to practice. We have to recognize this also. J. The vocal cords are held loosely together. When the air passes through, there's a lot of vibration involved. It's post-alveolar because the tip of the tongue touches the back of the alveolar. It's fricative because there is a narrowing or there is a stricture of close approximation. We've got this sound j. So s in the word treasure, or in the word measure, or in the word pleasure, this is j sound. So we'll have just one more today. Ha is a voiceless glottal fricative. Voiceless because the vocal cords are held loosely together separately. When the air passes through, there is no vibration involved. Glottal, because sound is produced from the glottis. It's fricative because there is a stricture of close approximation or a narrowing. So it's a voiceless glottal fricatives, and it is represented by H in the word house, or the word have, or in the word home. Yeah. So we have done these consonant sounds today. So we'll do the rest and the other things in the other class. So what we have seen is, we have seen 3 plosives, 6 plosives for b, t, d, k, and g. We have seen 2 affricates, ch and j. We have seen 9 fricatives, fa, va, tha, the, sa, z, sh, j, and ha. 3 nasals, ma, na, ma. 3 approximants, wa, ra, and ear, and 1 lateral, la. So nasals, approximants, and laterals will do in details in the next class. So as for now, I think this will be otherwise really heavy for all of you. Please go through this video and we'll learn a lot. Thank you so much for being so patient. You'll have a lot of questions. You can post these questions. Those of you who cannot watch this, I'll try and post this video later on in the Facebook once again. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Stay safe in all these days of hardships. Please come back in the next class. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye as of now.